Ruslan, can you hear me?
All good.
Great. Okay, take two. Sorry, guys. So Cardano, I'm going to go over the ecosystem, the technology, and roadmap, and then we're going to stop and do a Q&A. Whoever wants to ask any questions, whatever I can answer, I'll answer. Whatever I can't, we've got Ruslan. That's why. I wanted to thank him also because it's 2 o'clock in St. Petersburg a.m. So he's he was kind enough to basically say, yeah, I can do it. So
Oh, thanks,
yeah. So what is Cardano? Cardano, as you can see, is a blockchain that tries to deliver more advanced features than anything that has been built so far, and you will see why. So the ecosystem consists of three organizations: the Cardano Foundation, which is tasked with making sure that the technology is adopted and creates the bridges between the governments and institutions, and try to basically explain what the Cardano blockchain is and what it can do. And also the Cardano Foundation is in charge of the community developments, the meetups, the anything that basically enhances the acceptance and the adoption of the protocol. Input Output Hong Kong, you probably all know, Charles Hoskinson develops the platform. They started doing this, but as far as I know and how he presents it, they're not going to be the only company. In the future, when the platform is fully built, they want to compete for this job and be worthy of your dollars and your ADA when they do this. So the contract runs out when this platform is finished. By our estimates, I think by my estimates, it's 2021. We moved by 1 year or whatnot. But after that, it could be Microsoft, it could be IBM, it could be anybody who wants to basically improve the platform. And what will happen is that you and whoever owns the ADA will take a vote on who is going to be the next the company that will develop it. Now, Amurgo is another company that is tasked with building the partnerships with the commercial side. So, anybody who wants to build on Cardano platform, anybody who wants to build businesses, or if they want to use the platform but they are a startup, they want to apply, they can. They basically function as a VC and the sort of a commercial arm of this Cardano ecosystem, and trying to build these partnerships. Now, the topics today will be, as I mentioned in the meetup, is going to be the working philosophy, technical superiority, and the roadmap, and then we'll do the Q&A session. So the working philosophy of Cardano, as you probably know, is first they want to do a research. So the idea behind it was that a lot of projects in the space, a bunch of people fork Bitcoin and then build something on top of it, and then they realize that, oh wow, we have a problem, and then things go really bad, and they get hacked, and a lot of sort of built up goodwill in this space gets eroded as a result. So what Cardano did was they said, okay guys, let's just take a look at this space and find out the scientists who actually do cryptography for living, and just approach them and see if they could create something for us. So the backbone of Cardano is a bunch of researchers that are scattered all around the world who are providing their expertise in building these protocols. So first, the research is done, the papers are written, the papers are submitted to cryptographic conventions, and they're peer reviewed. And the process of peer review, I don't think I have to be too go into too details into this, but it's basically a bunch of people trying to find a flaw in your thinking, which is exactly what you need in this space. And once the papers pass the peer review, the code goes through the specification through the specification stage, and then turned into actually working product. So that's basically their philosophy, which is why it has taken a little bit of time to build their product, but we are closer to decentralization, as you will see later on. Now, in terms of technical superiority, the platform focuses on scalability, interoperability, and sustainability as three pillars of their development. And you will see that these are really critical sort of issues in the space that they would like to address with their platform. So, which problems, right? So scalability is an issue with blockchain because you see CryptoKitties, kind of killed Ethereum, not killed, but made things very slow, and it stems from the fact that the technology itself, the blockchain technology, is kind of slow the way it's designed, and it needs a little bit of a help in terms of offloading the main chain, we will see that Cardano has an interesting solution to that for that. So the blockchain itself is really heavy. It's getting to 1 terabyte. Ethereum is at that point. Then there are hacks. If there are contracts that are written on a platform that has gives the developers a lot of leeway, but also doesn't restrict them in any way. There are instances where you lose money, and these are some of them. And then the third problem is the funding, right? So if you build a protocol, the current system is such that once it's built, then the protocol will have to kind of develop on its own, or maybe develop through the donations or whatnot. So what Cardano has done, you will see that, we'll enter Cardano. This is what Cardano is doing in these instances. So on the scalability side, we started with Ouroboros, which is the provably secure proof of stake system. The problem with Ouroboros was that it required synchronization of all the devices in the network, which was impractical in an open architecture, which led to a subsequent research called Ouroboros Praos, which the paper was accepted and approved in one of the cryptographic events, and that particular flavor of Ouroboros basically dealt with open blockchains where people could come in and out, and there would be a topography of network would be different, different speeds, different latencies, and whatnot. Then Ouroboros Genesis came and it solved the problem of bootstrapping. So, for instance, if a client comes in and doesn't know anything about the protocol, it is able to basically bootstrap from the Genesis without having to rely on anybody that might be feeding it a wrong blockchain. And the future is, by the way, the next stage when we're gonna have a live product is going to be based on Ouroboros Genesis, and then the next iteration is going to be Ouroboros Hydra. It's in the next paper that they're working, which will address the issue of performance and sharding. Now, interoperability is another issue in the industry where the blockchains don't necessarily talk to each other. That's something that Cardano would like to address through sidechains. And as a side sort of benefit of that is they want to introduce authentication and compliance using metadata. It's very important with integration of this blockchain with the banking system. For instance, when you want to move or you want to integrate your chain with the current financial system, you cannot just basically go with your wallet data. You have to have some background of why this transaction took place, and unless you have that, you will not have easy integration. So this is something that's in the works, and it's part of the philosophy too. So, and then the sustainability. The sustainability is basically the blockchain's ability to sustain itself from the transactions. So the way that Cardano has solved this problem is that the transactions will automatically, let's say that you have 100% of the transactions, 20, I'm just throwing the numbers right now because it hasn't been set. Some portion of the transactions will go to a treasury that will fund the development of Cardano in the future. So people will be able to, businesses will be able to bid to improve the Cardano's ecosystem in the future. Now, the Cardano protocol itself, the architecture consists of two layers, the settlement layer and the computational layer. The reason behind this architecture is that the founders of Cardano basically thought that let's make sure that we have the accounting down to a place where nothing changes, or if you move if you do some computation, it shouldn't affect the way that your coins are accounted for. So if create a computational layer where you could experiment with your code, smart contracts, sidechains, multi-currency ledgers. This is where the iterations and I would say the evolution will take place, but at the base of it all is going to be a settlement layer where you will always be able to store your money and not risk it if you don't want to. So that's basically the reasoning behind it. So smart contracts, I want to say something about smart contracts. There are three different testnets at this point. The KVM, ELA, Pludus, and Marlow. Actually, Marlow is a domain-specific language that they recently rolled out. That you could actually right now go ahead and play and write your smart contracts and see how it interacts with the system. These are testnets, as I said. They will be live sometime if Ruslan. If my memory is correct, it's the second half of the year, maybe later. Ruslan can tell you more about those. So yeah, the test right now, the smart contracts, the testnets have been deployed, and you can find them on their website. Now I want to go a little bit about the roadmap and where we are and what we have done so far, what Cardano has done. So the first stage, the thing about Cardano is that they have, as many in this space, they've divided their development roadmap into phases. The first one was Byron, which is a bootstrap era. They created they went live with an SL mainnet. They have a Daedalus wallet and Yoroi wallet that you could use. Their network is still on a federated sort of structure where Emurgo, IOHK, and I think Cardano Foundation basically approve your transactions and whatnot. But they're moving away from this quarter of 2019 into a Shelley stage, which is decentralizations. So in a nutshell, Shelley will allow you to stake. There will be a stake pools where you can actually delegate your stake. You can actually run your own private pool if you want, if you don't want to delegate to anybody. The plan is to have about 1,000 pools, and this stage, which will start in quarter 1 2019, it's basically the rolling. So the start of this phase will be quarter 1, but it will go on. The light clan, for instance, support and quantum resistant signatures are not all coming into quarter 1. So the start of this phase is going to be quarter 1. But it's gonna roll out throughout the year, I think. So Gogen is another interesting sort of stage. It probably will be overlapping with some part of the Shelley, but it's the computational layer. This is when we will have the computational layer go live. You will have virtual machines, you will have side chains, multi-currency ledgers, smart contracts, and domain-specific contracts through Marlowe. So yeah, that's all I had to say for today. I know that it's very short, but thank you for your attention. And if you do have any questions, I'm gonna open the floor and let you ask those right now.
Do you have any more information on when Shelly is going to roll out?
So the estimate right now is that it's going to be Q1 2019. The way it's going to go is, as far as I know, is that we're going to go into BFT, the Ouroboros BFT, which will gradually release the network to the stake pools. So actually yesterday, Charles Hoskinson came out and said, this is going to be the plan. We're gonna take people's applications for testnets, the stake pool testnets, and then some of these people might go on to become basically the first wave of people who will overtake the network. So the way it will work is that the BFT will gradually start phasing itself out and giving control back to the decentralized nodes, depending on how these nodes are actually operating. So there will be a ranking of good nodes and bad nodes, and who is more reliable, and those are who are at the top. Maybe they will get the honors or whatnot. I mean, Ruslan can probably chime in and tell you more about this. Ruslan, do you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay. The question was, if there are any, if there's any new information about the Shelly release.
Yeah. So hello guys, hello everyone. You will have to tolerate my big Russian accent because, and forgive me if I space out sometimes, as Chuck mentioned. It's almost 3 a.m. here. So all the stuff that he already told you is basically correct, except for the small details, like we're gonna have to have 2 hard forks actually. So BFT cannot be gradually switched off. So BFT is almost like a complete opposite for a blockchain, because it just implies total control, like there is 100% trust. And the reason because why IHK need to switch to BFT before switching to Shelly is because the difference between all the stuff they want to implement in Shelly is, in comparison to what they have now in Byron, is so much that they just cannot switch one protocol to another in one step in between epochs. That they are setting the standard, and they are setting the standard for writing apps as if it's websites or web pages, something like that. Because you just write something and it's fine, and it's not good. So one of the main points of doing all this stuff with formal methods is just showing by example. Showing people that, showing the developers community that if you really want to try and get it right, then this is the way how you do it. And IHK and the Moodle will provide enough tooling and documentation and teaching and SDKs and potentially IDEs to do all the formal verification work for smart contract. And on the other side, we teach the client community, the people, the business side of the community, on what level of quality they need to require when they buy products, when they hire developers to create dApps for them. What are the stacks they ought to shoot for? Something like that. Is this a good answer?
Yeah, that works.
Thanks, Ruslan. Any other questions, guys?
I've got a couple actually. So I'm sorry. Somebody else go ahead. The moving to Shelley, moving to proof of stake, you're kind of starting the incentivization of people being in pools and distributing their compute to those pools. Have you guys like thought about what the return on ADA is going to be? Like, what incentivizes people? Is there control over that incentive, the level of incentives? Can you turn up the return on ADA through staking? Can you turn it down? Have you guys, as on the finance side, looked at that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it from just the return perspective. The short answer is that these things have not been yet made public. The long answer is that, and Ruslan can chime in. The long answer is that the stake pools are not going to be just stake pools. There will be many layers of services that they could provide, and on top of just earning the rewards, there will be many other avenues for them to make money. And well, is that right, Ruslan? Maybe you could just add more about where we are. He actually created a calculator for you could just plug in your number how much ADA you have and what would be the not most probable, what we think the rewards are gonna be. But yeah, take it away.
Well, yeah, I can try to add something to this. That calculator is interesting, but the main point for this was to show that the highest percentages of returns you get from growing number of transactions, not from shooting up your inflation. So the point now that when people ask like what are the percentages, what are the returns, what's going to be the level of profit we get, it's like it's really hard to answer at this point, and not because there are no public information or something like this, but because it doesn't make any real sense to answer this right now, because the asset itself, coins, either basically have no value that we can discuss. I mean, they don't have any fixed price right now. So when I tell you that like your reward for creating a block will be 100 ADA, what does it tell you? What does it cost? 100 ADA? Is it a day of work, or is it like I can go to vacation for 100 ADA? What the actual value of this? Because it's nothing. It's like measuring in units. Like, what are the rewards? They are 500 units. What does it mean? I don't know. So the problem is that people currently ask the questions thinking that developers can affect the level of rewards. And it's not exactly the right way of thinking about it, because developers can set the inflation level, of course. So they can do, like, I don't know, 2% inflation or 20% inflation. And like, of course, yeah, you get 20% inflation and everyone gets more coins, but it means absolutely nothing. Because if I tell to you that rewards for staking is, for example, 10%, then is it good? Like, I don't know, but everyone gets 10%. But would 20% be better? I don't know, because everyone just gets twice as much coin. But it as well means that coins are twice as cheap. So instead of 500 coins, I get 1,000 coins, but they cost twice as cheap, and so I get the same value. So the inflation level of rewards basically means nothing, because when people get rewards only out of inflation, they basically get compensated for inflation itself. Because it works like this, when coin value inflates, so when more and more coins get automatically released into the system, basically everyone who has any coins loses a bit of value. So even if I have one other coin, when another epoch passes and some amount of new coins gets into the system, potentially, theoretically, not because of actual something like USD prices, but theoretically, I lose a bit of value on this one ADA just because there are more of them now. And because not 100% of ADA owners will participate in staking and in the whole staking thing, then all the people who participate in staking basically get the value lost by all the people who don't participate in staking. And this is all that matters, because everyone loses a bit, but who participate in staking get it back, and that's it. So if you participate in staking, you get compensated for what you lost from inflation. So it doesn't matter much. What we should care about is how popular system becomes, and we can predict it, because we can say like that there will be 10,000 transactions today. It might as well be a million if we do our job good, and if we're lucky enough, and if it gets out there and if it gets adopted, then the rewards will be amazing. It will be like 20% for everyone, and this will be actual rewards that come from people paying for using the system, not from just printing money out of the thing. So that's kind of a long answer. And
Yeah, if I can ask you to clarify this thing.
Yes.
If I can ask you to clarify this thing, so when the staking reward formula is set, is it possible for the community to change it in the future? I think that was the second question there. Is it architecturally
Yes.
flexible?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's just basically a protocol parameter, and there are two special kinds of parameters in the system. Like when you just fire up the blockchain, you have your Genesis block, and in your Genesis block you have two kinds of data. It's constants, it's protocol constants, which are like forever. That's it. You can't change them just because it's something like initial coin allocation, some stuff like that you can change just because it starts to moving around. And then you have protocol parameters, and those you can change at any epoch. So people basically can vote at any time. If someone can create like a Cardano improvement proposal and describe how, like, I have this cool formula and it's better because of this set of reasons, and people vote, and then developers be like, yeah, okay, seems like 10 epoch forward, we're gonna move to new formula, and it's gonna be just, it's gonna be a hard fork, because you can, you just do a hard fork and you basically have new rules.
Yes, and if I can clarify about staking, so at each point in time, a person who's holding in the ecosystem, who's part of the ecosystem, he has a choice of either stake the ADA or make it available in the market. These are the two choices that I can identify at this point. And the idea behind staking is such that it creates an impetus for people to basically hold on to their ADA, and also it creates from the other side, let's say that developers want to develop something on Cardano's computational layer, demand for it. So through the price of the mechanism of the price, basically people will decide, oh, at this price, do I want to stake or do I want to just sell it? So this interplay of price versus supply keeps playing out throughout the time, and as the transactions, as the platform becomes more valuable, or the types of apps that are available in the platform create more demand, there will be more demand in the open market, and it basically dries up the supply of the coin from staking, thereby reducing the total amount of stake available, and therefore increasing your return if you are staking. So it's basically an economic model where the interplay takes place. In the long run, I expect that a majority, as Ruslan was saying, a majority of your returns will come from transactions, because they will be creating all the all the returns. So the way it works is that the system will give you a reward plus transaction fees. So the transaction fees are part of the rewards, and will be distributed to those who stake. And at any point in time, the person who is staking thinks, hey, okay, maybe at this point, Cardano is $5, I'm out. I can just basically relax in Puerto Rico or not. And if he's out, then he just basically makes his coin available in the market. But if he stays in the staking, that basically dries up the supply in exchanges, thereby creating the upward pressure for the price. That's my understanding of it.
Yeah, absolutely. The cool part of it is that the reward, the size of the reward, greatly depends on what's the overall stake in the system. And so, like, the more people stake their coins, the less are the rewards, because you get rewards based on your share in the system. And so if you own 10,000 coins, it also says nothing, because it's 50% if there is only 20,000 stake. But if there are 20 billion stake, it's completely the same, another share. And so this is actually cool stuff, because of it, we can say that the size of rewards will be exactly equal to what people are comfortable with getting for them staking the coins, something like this. Because as more people getting into staking, rewards will get lower and lower and lower. And as rewards get lower, people say, I don't want to do it because rewards are low and I don't need it. And they take coins away from the staking. And then rewards go a bit higher. So sooner or later, they will find the golden middle, and it will be exactly the reward that people are comfortable with.
Yes. You had a question, by the way.
One question. So my business partner, he's considering creating his own staking pool. He has significant stake in ADA, and he's just wondering, can we still register for creating the pool now?
Yes. The question was, did you hear the question, Ruslan? No?
Should we stay? Do we need to register to create the staking pool?
Yeah. So her partner wants to be registered to create a staking pool. You might want to just explain a little bit what the process is.
So the stake pools on mainnet and on testnet after the shell is released, and maybe on testnet sometime before shell gets released, they will be completely permissionless. So you don't need anyone's permission. You basically just open your wallet and just send a transaction and they register a pool, and now you have a pool. So the stuff that IOHK had the registration form for is just like initial states of the testnet, because they just rolling out the testnet soon, and they want to have some control on it for the first period of time, so they can to negotiate with people, they can send emails, they want to know who will be operating on it just for this first stage, just to get everything right. And when they are sure that everything works more or less correctly, they're gonna allow all the people to do whatever they want.
Thank you.
So no registration for a stake pool required on mainnet ever.
What are the physical requirements for a node for a full stake, both in terms of ADA and processing power and internet connection?
Yeah, in terms of ADA, there are no requirements, because you only required to send one transaction to register you will be required to send few transactions. And so you will need enough ADA to pay for those transactions. So first you need to create a staking key, where you will delegate your coins from your wallet, from your addresses to the staking key and your staking key, and you will get rewards to this key. And then you need to send transaction to register your stake pool. And then you need to, and now you have your staking key, and now you have separately your staking pool. And it might, you can create those from different wallets. And now you need to send the transaction from the first wallet that you delegate your coins from your staking key to your staking pool. This is third transaction. And so you need to send these 3 transactions, and you will need something like, I don't know, I'm just guessing, like, but maybe like 3 ADA for it. It's basically just transaction fee. So maybe a bit more pricey for the stake pool, just because they want to create this deposit system. But it's not a deposit for the stake pool, like for the stake pool itself. It's a deposit for the physical space that you take on the nodes. So like, because when you create a stake pool or when you create a staking key, you need to store some data on nodes basically permanently until you send special transaction to destroy this data. And so with every transaction, you will need to send maybe something like half an ADA, maybe 1 ADA, to which will also be stored along with this. And when you destroy this resource, when you like send special transaction like delete my key, you get some portion back. So it's just a deposit, but it's fully, we are talking about like maybe half a coin. So there is no actual requirement to have certain amount of coins to run a pool. But there is a cool system on civil attack protection, because you need to protect from a bunch of bad people creating a bunch of staking pools each, and basically like pretending to be a bunch of different people. And the system is kind of very simple, but kind of very complex underneath. But on the surface, it sounds like the more stake you have put yourself in your pool, the higher will be the rewards for the whole pool. So when you create a stake, you as an owner of this pool, you put your own stake in there, allocate. And there might be multiple owners, by the way. So, and they don't need to trust their stake to each other. So they can like, there's gonna be a system for this. So when you create a pool, you put your own stake in it, like this delegation stuff. And the higher this stake, like it's called the leader stake, like the stake of the person behind this pool. The higher it is, the more rewards all the people get that delegate to this pool. So it should protect from people just generating, like splitting their stake and creating a bunch of pools, stuff like that. So, but no requirement. So if you want to create if you want to create a pool, you can do it with like no data at all, basically, except for transaction.
Yeah, it's if I could just add, it's they've done an analysis of staking the game. You're using game theory, and they basically, their solution was that you could create this incentive by saying that if you are a pool operator, instead of dividing your stake into different pools, you could just put it in one place and thereby earn more yourself and more for for the people who will stake with you. So it just basically disincentivizes people from creating multiple pools by just slightly improving your returns, thereby encouraging other people to stake with you rather than with somebody else who put like 2 ADA in his stake pool. So it basically, solves that problem without, creating a necessity to put large amount of ADA locked in and penalize people for bad behavior. So there's no such thing as far as I know, built into the system so far. the system basically takes care of bad actors automatically, by design.
Theoretically.
Yeah.
What's the hardware requirement?
So the question was, what was the hardware requirement?
Yeah, for hardware, it's basically it really depends on what's gonna be the software you're running, because initially there's probably of course gonna be only like a couple of full node implementations, and both are from IOHK, and one is in Haskell and one is in Rust, and you can choose either of those, whatever you're more comfortable with. And it's gonna be a bit different, but speculation for now is like based on what we have seen with Cardano SL implementation, and what we see with how they redesign and refactor it, and what we have seen with Cardano CLI and Cardano Rust. It's something in between of if we use Amazon instances just to like label different levels of server hardware, something between A1 large and A1X large instance. So it's something like 2 to 4 cores and maybe 4 to 8 gigabytes of RAM, and it should be like fairly enough
That's for a full client?
to run a node for the first at least like some years
Full node?
before
Yeah.
we get
We don't have light nodes yet.
with sidechains and stuff.
So there's no light clients?
There's no light clients at this point, right? Is this a full node? That was the question.
Well, I mean, to run a pool, to run a
Right.
node, you
To run
need
the pool.
full node. So we're talking about full nodes. We have light clients like Yoroi, but you can't run a staking pool from a Yoroi, because the whole point of the staking pool is that you are running a full node. That's
Yeah.
basically the definition.
Yeah.
So yeah, for a full node, you need to download the whole copy of chain, you need to always be in sync, you need to be ready to produce blocks yourself, so you need to receive transactions from peers, you need to be ready to sort out those transactions out. Of course, software does all this. You need only to be able to set it up, to maintain it, to keep it up, to keep it working, not get it hacked, and not get it broken or turned off. So uptime is basically the only requirement.
Are all these documented somewhere?
Well-
Are all these things that you mentioned, are they documented somewhere?
The answers to the questions, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like how to create a staking pool, how to join, all
Yeah.
that?
Not yet, but it's gonna be prepared, because it's getting known and designed basically right now, this quarter. And so it's all gonna be documented somewhere around first stages of testnet, I guess.
Yeah.
But when they get testnet, they get actual results. The IOHK DevOps will run like proper experiments, because what they're running now is like it's through like lab environment packaging stuff.
Yeah. So Charles Hoskinson basically posted a 10-minute video about people who want to participate in the testnet could do that and ask all their questions in that group. I think they are forming a group, a Telegram group or whatnot. So the result of that will be they're going to aggregate all the questions that people will ask about staking, delegation, or whatnot, and then all of those questions will be aggregated and turned into digestible sort of guide, and will be shared with the community. So let's say that in quarter 2, 2019, somebody comes in and says, "Oh, I want to stake." You can just point him out point him to a document where he will have all his questions answered. Oh, is that?
You sent it.
Yeah. Did you send it to?
Yeah, we actually already have this group open.
Yeah.
So all the people that really interested in running their own nodes are really welcome to join this group, because there's going to be all the discussion about what kinds of questions and what kind of information information and what kind of documentation community wants to see from and what kind of questions they want to see answered by IOHK about nodes as like the IOHK as reference developer basically. And so the level of standard that we are setting right now as a community for IOHK will be used as a reference for all the other developers. We can show them like, this is the level at which you need to work with the community. So it should be like, we should really work hard to make it good. So you're really welcome to join this group. Like, we'll send your questions there, and they are all gonna be aggregated in one document and sent to AUHK, and they're gonna release a handbook for stake for potential pool operators.
Okay. What's the status of the languages you can use? Haskell, Rust for smart contracts? Are there strict subsets or the full language to compile the smart contracts?
Oh yeah, right now you can use Solidity on one testnet. It's KEVM testnet. It's like a full copy of Ethereum virtual machine, but done in cool system K, like system for formal verification and stuff. And so it's they have cool terminology.
Correct by
and
construction.
Yeah, correct by construction. Yeah, so just like the fact that you have this system like compiled down and launched already proves that it's correct. This is a really cool company, runtime verification. You should look them up. Interesting bunch of people. And so you can use Solidity there, and it should support Viper too eventually, but maybe like a bit later. You can use Yella on the separate Yella testnet, which is like more low level and kind of reminds stuff like C, because it has like deep memory management, but of course on blockchain level, so it's not the same as like managing the memory in your computer program, but kind of similar. So it's interesting, and Google already kind of works on some cool stuff with this, on some projects with this virtual machine, and kind of encourages people to experiment with it, because Yella is a really cool language in terms that you can design your own languages that compile down to Yella. You can do it in K also. So we are working on the education part about that, so it should be cool. And you now also can try Plutus, try it out, but it's not yet on blockchain. It uses like a special just blockchain simulator where you run your program and it emulates as if it's running on blockchain. It's really cool. They have visualizations and stuff like that, and you can use the Plutus sandbox for it. And the current, like the work front end, the work front on languages that the runtime verification company actually re-implements their own backend of the Yella virtual machine, so that they will be able to compile any program defined in K language, in K framework that have semantics defined. They will be able to compile it down to the Yella language, and Yella can be executed on the Yella virtual, Yella testnet, and then on the Gogin mainnet eventually. And so if you open like runtime verification GitHub, you can find K framework in there, and you can see the list of all the languages that have like semantic defined. There is like some subset JavaScript, of course subset, not full. There's Java defined, C++ defined, there's like all the Python defined, and all this stuff. And they are working and like experimenting with the first results right now, from what I know. Can't tell more at this point, unfortunately. But it's coming. It's coming, and it's coming from the Yellow test.
Okay, so is the virtual machine based on the EVM?
No. The virtual machine based on EVM it's not like based on EVM. It's basically EVM, but it completely re-implemented in K framework, and but it follows the same standard.
Same
And
outputs and everything?
you can take any Solidity contract from Ethereum right now and run it on KEVM testnet in Cardano, and it just works out of the box. But we are talking about second testnet, which will be the second computational layer chain, which runs Cardano own, like from zero up, from starters, completely custom view virtual machine called Yela, which is like IELE, abbreviation like Yela. For this virtual machine and for this chain, they are currently doing this like universal compiler from different languages, but only for languages that are defined in K, of course. That's no magical bullet here.
Yeah, the testnet, I posted the link there. You can see they kind of, the page looks like this. You've got KVM, Iela, Plutus, and Marlow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, there is Remix fork running for Iela there, so you can try it out. Actually, UI is cool. Because you can actually port Solidity contracts to Iela too. But for this, you need to change some stuff. Because when they created KEVM, they had to follow the EVM standard because it needs to be actual EVM, Ethereum virtual machine. It's just ported. So, and reading the posts that runtime verification wrote about implementing EVM was like nothing but fun because it's like they were swearing a lot, let's tell it like, because there is too much stuff in Ethereum standard which is just undefined. So when they were creating the Yela, they had to actually define all this stuff and sort all these problems out. And so when you're porting Solidity contract to Yela, you need to change some little details here and there because they were falling into this undefined behavior fast. So, and Remix helps you with this. So if you open this Remix fork, you can create, there are already like one Solidity and one Yellow example in the open, so you can use either language. And if you use Solidity and you just copy paste some Ethereum smart contract and you run compile, it just like highlights some stuff and tells you this is undefined. You need to change it for Yellow. So it's cool.
My understanding is, so you got lots of different types of coins that have been they're built off of the Ethereum base, including stable coins that are being built off the Ethereum base. Are there any plans in the future of Cardano to allow for other coins to be built off of Cardano besides ADA?
Yes. So the cool feature of Cardano is that Ruslan is going to delve into this deeply. I can just cover it a little bit. Is that the secondary coins that right now reside on Ethereum through the ERC20, they are kind of second rate citizens in a way. That in Cardano you won't have that. You will have the same priority for all the coins that will be generated on Cardano's computational layer. Ruslan will be able to give you the technical details on that.
Yeah, well, getting some air for that. Okay, sorry. So yeah, I need to fix the response a bit because you will have second class citizen coins on Cardano too. Because basically when we tell that Ethereum tokens are second class citizens, it just means that they are implemented as smart contracts. And you will have smart contract on computational layer. So it's going to be basically the same system. You can just create a smart contract, and this smart contract just kind of like keeps the balance of all the addresses that own this token. This is basically how ERC20 works. You have one smart contract, and there is like one hash map in there, and it tells like this address owns this much of our token. That's it. There is no actual token in existence somewhere on the chain. It's just this one smart contract that tells like, okay, you own like 100 of my tokens. This is what second class citizen means, and because you don't see these tokens in actual transactions, because like wallets, all the UI wallets, they just like prettify all this stuff following the standard. But actually, when you send a transaction on Ethereum, you can say like send 20, I don't know, some token. There are actual Cardano gold tokens, ERC20 tokens on Ethereum, which is like, don't buy those, please. So you can just tell like in transaction send 20 Cardano ADA gold to someone, because the transaction itself doesn't look like this, because you tell it in a wallet, but when you send a transaction actually just says like, take this smart contract and call this function. This function like says, reduce the amount owned by this address and increase amount owned by this address, and that's it. This is like, it doesn't look like actual transfer of asset. Just change some data in this smart contract. And so Cardano will have this, because you can do this already you can do this on KEVM, just you can take any ERC20 from actual Ethereum and run it right now. Right now on KEVM testnet on Cardano. Or you can do similar stuff on Gela, and it will work exactly the same. But additionally to this, they want to implement first-class citizen tokens, which will live on actual settlement layer. It will not be on computational layer, it will be on settlement layer itself. So it will use the whole UTXO system, it will look and be transferred completely in the same similar way. It will be created by special kind of transaction, and you just send a transaction and send like, create please this kind of asset with this amount, with like this address is the owner, and some parameters additional, not defined yet, but in work. It's all research and specification right now. And so you send this kind of transaction, you pay some, of course, some ADA for this, and now you have this asset. And now when you send a transaction, you actually can have, like, if you know how UTXO transaction looks, like in Bitcoin, you actually in the transaction can have like some ADA inputs and some custom Ruslan token inputs, and also some Ruslan token outputs to some other address. And they have all the same properties as ADA itself. They have all the same security proofs as ADA itself. You don't need to formally verify them, because protocol itself, the settlement layer itself is already formally verified. You don't need to proofread every creation of every asset and proofread every smart contract, because you just send a transaction, and transaction is proved to be correct. And now you have asset where every movement and every transaction is proved to be correct, and you just can use it. That's the beauty. So they will be in addition to
Yeah.
the smart contract tokens.
Thanks for clarifying. Yeah.
When's that coming, or like what release is that in?
So I was telling everybody that it's the Gogan is going to be a second half of 2019, if I remember correctly. But you might have better information.
Yeah, it sounds like realistically for now. The Gogan, the good part about all these stages of roadmap, like Shelly and Gogan and Basho and stuff like this, is they are not linear, they are not like linked to dependent on one another, because you can have Gogan on Byron basically. You don't need Shelly to have Gogan, but it's just they are developed by different teams in parallel, but it's just so happens that Shelly is developed faster because it's simpler. But Gogan Gogan was developed for all this time in parallel, and it's like going along. All the testnets and all the languages is basically the part of Gogan. And we have some of those already. So, yeah, still realistically, I think like second half of 2019 is a good timeline to when we can see actual computational life on main.
Is ADA burned in a transaction?
At this point, yes.
So when I do a computation, when I do an opcode,
Oh.
run an opcode, add, subtract, whatever, is ADA burned like gas?
Right now, no. Okay, you take it.
No, you mean like when we will have Gogan, we
No,
will
I mean-
take the big drone for running smart contracts, right?
Yeah, I mean like at whatever point a year from now, when I run a smart contract, I have to burn some ADA, like gas,
Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
and then what's the measurement of ADA to gas, or what's it called? ADA gas?
Well, yeah, something like that.
It has to be
basically
defined,
will be yes, you just say some ADA. They are still working on actual gas model for this thing. I mean, like the gas model for virtual machines are pretty much working right now, but how to link this to ADA is still in research, because they're like, the Ethereum model is what we have, but there is nothing that tells us that it's the best thing that we have there. So they are working this out, and they are thinking on stuff like, do you need the decoupling from actual asset to gas? Do you need maybe to try to, how many levels of decoupling do you need? How should the accounting work and all the stuff like that? But basically, yes, ADA will be used to pay for running smart contracts in some way.
Right. So the yellow, is there a yellow paper yet for yellow? Does yellow have yellow papers yet?
Or yeah, for yellow you can have the yellow. I'm not sure about the yellow paper, but you can have the technical specification for yellow. 1 second, I will try to find it now.
But I mean, it must have some kind of unit. It'll say like an addition, a subtraction cost this much ADA gas.
Oh,
Yeah, define it.
yes, I mean this is all. Yes, there is a GitHub called yellow semantics. I will send it to you right now. As I say, virtual machines themselves, they already have the gas model. Do you hear me, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, we hear you, but we lost your video.
Frozen.
The video has frozen.
At least you didn't.
Yeah, I have browser frozen. Yeah, seems like
We can just reset.
Hangouts are playing from. Well, okay, I will see if I can unfreeze it, but okay, so virtual machines have actual gas models already set in. They have pricing models, they have the whole system of how you take some abstract gas for executing opcodes already set in. But the system on how you link this cost, how you link these abstract prices to actual ADA as an asset is not defined yet.
Okay. I guess that makes sense.
Okay, so I think I'm gonna need to drop off for a second, and then I'm gonna try to join back because browser is playing games.
Sure,
Okay.
sure, no problem.
So does anybody know? So there's the yellow is gonna be the new virtual machine specification. Anybody who's a developer?
Yeah, I'm not a developer.
That's cool. Not a finance guy.
That's what he said, right?
Yeah. So the yellow is a language.
Yeah, it's
But it also comes with a specification for it's compiled down to target. Because right now it's based on the EVM, right?
Right.
So once it becomes yellow, it becomes a whole new architecture.
so yellow will be run in parallel to KVM. I think they're gonna still be two different sort of virtual machines. If you are comfortable doing,
Two different blockchains.
yeah, two different blockchains with running in different.
So the mainnet in a year from now is gonna have two different blockchains? No, right?
It's gonna have at least three different blockchains
Yes.
actually, because you will have
You're good.
Good.
Yeah, you're great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you will have the settlement layer, which is Cardano itself, which is what we have now and what we will have after Shelley, and this is one blockchain. And then you will have a computational layer, and computational layer will consist at least of two separate blockchains, which are KVM blockchain and Yellow blockchain. And all three of them will be connected by NIPOPOs and stuff like this, which are non-interactive proofs of work and proofs of stake for sidechain. And you also will have a special kind of protocol in how you move assets between layers, because there will be something like a firewall when you can move weird stuff from computational layer to settlement layer, because settlement, the whole point to have settlement layer is so it's like sandbox from the outside world. So there are between computational layer chains, you can do basically whatever, and then you can go nuts, just anything. So if there is some weird bug happens in that, if stuff happens. So it all stays on the computational layer. You can't move weird stuff back to settlement layer, which have really strict rules defined for it, on how to move out and how you move back in.
Okay, so there's gonna be yellow, and there's gonna be the KVM, right? And but
Well, yeah,
they're both targeting something, right?
two different things.
On two different chains, but I thought they're all the same computational chain.
No. They are just two separate chains, and you can move assets from one chain to another. But basically, like it will look something like this. I will try to. So you have settlement layer. It's just basic Cardano. You have some ADA, and you have transactions, and you have Bluetooth. Bluetooth will be on settlement layer too, and you have some first-class citizen assets like custom tokens and stuff like this, and you have Mago and all the fancy stuff is going around, happening around. And then you say like, okay, now I have like some cool Solidity contract, and I don't want to change anything. I just want to run it, and I want to use KEVM for this. And then you send a special kind of transaction where you say, okay, I want to send like ADA from settlement layer address something, address A, to KEVM kind of KVM chain kind of address B, some type of A address, and this address already will be Ethereum type of address. So, or potentially, just because KVM works with them, so why not? So you will send a transaction that says something like from SL address like AE something like Cardano as it looks now to CLKVM and all X something like bunch of numbers and hex stuff with like Ethereum address. And then some blocks pass, because for moving stuff between chains you need more than one block. You need to actually two transactions to happen on different chains. And sometimes pass, and now on the separate blockchain, which is KEVM blockchain on the computational layer, there is a special transaction happens that says that this address now receives some ADA. There is actual ADA on this chain now, and it's separate blockchain. And there you now can deploy your smart contract, and there is no UTXO, just standard accounts like in Ethereum, everything like in Ethereum. It's like having Ethereum just next to settlement layer on Cardano.
Do I understand it correctly, Ruslan, that there will be more side chains, right? If you have a language defining K framework, you could potentially create a side chain with its own consensus mechanism, its own a coin, Is that still, does that still hold? I remember I was talking to you about that before.
Yeah, okay, but let me try to answer this. So, moving back to the sidechain stuff I just told you, so you can move from settlement layer to KVM chain, then you do something with Solidity contracts right there, and then you say, okay, now I did all the computation and smart contract stuff that I wanted to do. Now I just want to move back to a cell and back to my, I don't know why. Just I want it back there. I don't want it next to my smart contracts anymore. And you just send another transaction that says like move my assets back to a cell grid. And it just sends back, and there is some transaction happens on the KVM chain, and sometimes passes, and there is a second transaction happens on the actual Cardano settlement layer chain. And this transaction just says like minus this amount of coins, and this transaction says plus this amount of coins. This is how you move transactions, how you move coins between chains, because they are looking at each other with special kind of protocol. And so, or another example is when you moved your assets from a cell to KVM chain, and you did some stuff with Solidity smart contract there, but then you say, okay, but now I want to do some stuff with this smart contract, but this smart contract only exists on yellow chain because it's written in yellow or in Python that compiles down to yellow. And it's full smart contract, I want to send some coins to it, but I have coins on this chain. And this is all like still computational layer, just two separate blockchains. And now you send special transaction that says from this account on like CL KVM, send to this special account to CL yellow. And there is transaction happens here, sometimes passes, there is transaction happens here, and now you have your coins here. And this is the same coin. This is just the same asset moving around. And now you can interact with this smart contract and then back to a cell or back to this chain. This is like initial Grogan setup that they will have. This is why all the cool research on sidechain and proof of work sidechains and proof of stake sidechains especially was happening lately. And this is what we need for the Grogan to be actually possible. And so this research is now out, and so it looks really bright, looks really promising. This is what we will have in something like maybe some months, maybe a year from now. And so back to question, I forgot what the last question was.
Oh yeah. I wanted to ask. I was just saying that the computational layer could expand potentially indefinitely, but right, because you could have a lot of.
If you want to create your own sidechain, you don't actually need a language to be defined in K specifically, because when you create a sidechain, you can do whatever. Because the plan for now is that eventually Bitcoin, if everything goes right, Bitcoin will be a sidechain to Cardano, and Ethereum will be a sidechain to Cardano. Maybe one day. Well, Ethereum Classic will be a sidechain to Cardano. So all of them already, like Cardano is called blockchain of blockchains, exactly because it not only tries to create the right kind of blockchain of one or two or three blockchains, but because it tries to develop the right kind of protocols for blockchains to talk between each other. So if you want to create your own sidechain, there are like two possibilities. One is you just develop basically your own blockchain. It might be whatever you want. You really just start your own project, create your own full node, create your own protocol rules, create your own Genesis block. You fire up your own blockchain. It does some cool stuff, whatever you want, and you employ a special kind of data in each block, which is required by the NIPOPOS protocols. And if you have this data available, and if your blocks are configured, if your nodes are configured in a special way, then you can be a sidechain Cardano. And now anyone can basically move either to your blockchain if they want to. And basically you can move your asset to Cardano, to any of the Cardano chain. from the free chains, I mean, to layers. And this is like the first level, because this is the basic stuff. So how chains talk with each other. And after this, the plan and some initial research from what I know already started on how to provide something like an actual SDK on how you can how to put it nicely, something like how you can for some price, of course, nothing comes free. How you can pay some ADA and have basically like a lightweight sidechain fired up for you. So all you will need to do is, if you want to implement some crazy protocol rules, or you can use some crazy virtual machine, or you can do some cool like kind of tokens or kind of smart contracts, or maybe you just want your not for this part. So maybe for this part too. So you just how it will actually look from the developer's point of view is not yet defined, of course, but it's something like you will need to like run some CLI kind of stuff, create some special kind of transactions, complex transactions, define some rules and some actual software, and then you can propose all the validators on Cardano to run your stuff for some price. And then it will be automatically linked to Cardano as a sidechain. And basically it should be way easier than creating your own blockchain from ground up. So this is the plan. But of course the big question is what would be the use cases for this? And so there are like a bunch of people working on this now, and they are thinking that they have actually put kind of enterprise and maybe partially permissioned and partially closed kind of use cases for this. And if it proves to be actually interesting and needed, then we maybe like in a year or a couple of years, we might see this kind of functionality on Cardano too. When you can just, so for developers, it will be easier to imagine as if you're writing like a plugin for other programs. So if you have a Daedalus, you can create kind of like a sandbox plugin for it. And if you have something like some coding IDE, like a Visual Studio or something like this, you can create like cool extensions and plugins, or like extension for a browser. In the same way, you potentially, it's like an idea, you could create like a plugin or extension to actual blockchain node. And this extension would employ in itself some specific rules on how you need your blockchain to be executed and to be run, to run, or to be what kind of stuff you want to run there. And then it can be potentially somewhat securely appended to actually running nodes. Of course, if we want to, and of course, if you incentivize them enough. And then you can run your own lightweight sidechain on a subset of Cardano network.
Yep.
So you mentioned at one point that you can have tokens running as first-class citizens on the base layer. Then at one point you also mentioned that you can have Bitcoin as a Cardano sidechain. Can you then have Bitcoin at the base layer as a first-class citizen if you take it from your Bitcoin sidechain and send it to your UTXO?
Well, yeah, it will need to, so the protocol works kind of like this. So when you send Bitcoin to Cardano, you don't get actual Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is just a piece of code that tells like this address has this amount. So the basics are the same. So instead of this, you have special kind of token on Cardano itself. And this token is called something like Bitcoin sidechain, something like this. It may be called anything, like BTC20. But of course it will need to be like a specific, restricted, like only for core developers, for protocol kind of tokens, where there will need to be two kinds of first class tokens on the settlement layer. One type is what users can just create within transaction. So like I can set a transaction and create my own like BTC20, and now I have token called BTC20. And so I can basically go around and tell people that this is actual Bitcoin. Some people may believe me for some reason, and it's gonna be bad. And second type of tokens, that they are like restricted, that work like reserve key programming language. So when you actually have new type of sidechain added to your ecosystem, that now only all the nodes need to approve for this kind of token to be created, and this type of token will guarantee to users that it's actually related with this chain in some sort. So you won't end up having like Cardano Gold or something, right? So people don't get confused. So if you have two identical tokens and one of them called BTC20 and another called BT Russian S20, then it's gonna be bad because you can basically fool people. But if those tokens are different on the inside, where one of them clearly in its implementation says that this is token linked to this special sidechain, then all the wallets, can make it obvious, and people can distinguish between them. So something like that. But yeah, so when you attach any other blockchain as a sidechain, you have a special kind of token here, and basically it just works as a market consensus. When not even as a market, but it's like implied automatically, because for every one BTC you now can get, you are guaranteed to automatically be able to get one BTC20, and for every BTC20, if you have one, it means that one BTC is locked in here automatically, and for every BTC20, you are automatically guaranteed to be able to get one BTC. And when you have these rules, they are basically equal to each other.
Thanks.
So the idea is like this.
Any other questions? Yeah. Well, it looks like we exhausted all the questions, Ruslan, and there's a lot to take in. It took me about 6 months to actually, make sense out of the system. I'm sure that people will have a lot of questions, but that's why we're going to have more meetups. So for developers, I guess, yeah, we're going to have special sort of events where, I'm going to invite you or anybody else who wants to show up to answer these questions. I always find them interesting. So if you guys don't have any questions, I would like to thank Ruslan for his time, because it's just, unreasonable time. And
Guys, thank you for asking questions, and I'm gonna send our Telegram links to the chat now. So don't forget to join our groups, especially developer group, if you're interested in all this stuff, because you can ask any stuff in there too, and if I am or someone else knowledgeable is in there, we're gonna try to answer this too. So all the questions were really interesting and really cool today, so thank you for this.
thanks, Ruslan. Thanks for coming. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right.
So hope to hear from some of you or all of you later.
All right. I'll make sure that if they have any questions, I'll send them to you.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Ruslan.